absolutely, Ryan, and it is a pleasure to collaborate with you and your team today. The current environment is rather interesting. Just before this call, we were talking about what's happening and where people are, right? So we've got some people who are on farms and have chickens, and we've got some people who are in New York apartments, one-bedroom apartments with entire families in those apartments. You know, what we're experiencing is unprecedented. And you mentioned during the introduction that you had just done a webinar with U-Haul on work at home. So clearly, you know, as we're all seeing, the number one, you know, practice in today is for contact centers to have their employees work from home, work at home. And, you know, it's a great concept, particularly if you have experience in working from home, right? But while many, many companies have disaster recovery and business continuity plans, I know of no company, and I've spoken to many, many in the past couple of weeks, who had a BC plan, business continuity plan, that took into account the need to keep people 6 or 10 feet away from each other, right? So that's our environment. You know, one of the most important concepts, you know, and again, it's not as if it's a proven best practice, because as you pointed out, all of this, there's no precedent whatsoever for what's happening right now. But the most important thing for organizations to do is to keep their employees healthy so that those employees can be there for your organization. Now, you know, from an environmental perspective, you know, what's happening, and some of this, you know, we've seen before is, you know, we see interaction volumes going up and up, 25, 50, 100% to organizations, right? At the same time as those who can have moved their employees out, and for those who haven't yet, while your people are mission critical, whether you're on-premise or using cloud-based solutions, we strongly recommend that you let your people work from home. I mean, I was just talking to one organization that literally sent their employees home. They didn't have PCs. They can't get them because they're all on back order right now, lots of things. But literally, they had their people, this was a couple weeks ago, early on in the process, take entire desktops home in Ubers and Lyfts in order to get people home. Excuse me there. And, you know, we've got this interaction volumes, right, hitting. And one of the phenomena is that, you know, Ryan, and I think we've both seen this many times, is that contact centers also seem to serve the purpose of being free psychological counseling sessions. So contact center agents are not they are amazing, but, you know, they are first responders, not like, you know, these amazing doctors and PAs and nurses and EMTs who are putting their lives on the line on a daily basis. But contact center agents, some of whom do fall into those categories, by the way, are you know, facing their own fears and confronting their own issues at the same time, right, as they're hearing what the public and consumers are feeling and thinking, right? So people call for a reason, but they often start the call sharing their feelings and thoughts, which means that it's critically important not only for you to care about your people's medical health, but also their mental health. And you know, while we're sending people home, I think the name of the game today, Ryan, is flexibility in everything that you're doing with people. Because keep in mind, and we were just joking about this, and we were actually, a couple of us, you know, including the moderators on this call, were just talking about, you know, how difficult it is to work from home when you've got an entire family sitting there. Right? So how do you do that? And the answer is going to come back to flexibility.
Yeah, we're hearing that same thing from a lot of our customers too, Donna, just being agile, being flexible, getting everybody at home. It's remarkable. We were just talking to one of our insurance customers yesterday who was able to get their entire thousands of agents work from home really just within a matter of days. And some of them didn't even have equipment to be able to do it. So they're using home equipment. It's being enabled by their IT staff. And like you said earlier, that kind of flexibility and adaptability is really important right now in the moment.
You know, and you do raise some really good points about what you just said. One of the big issues right now is the inability to get hold of some PCs. And what you said really does make sense. If you can involve your IT staff safely in the process, a lot of people do have computers at home that can be used right, under the right circumstances in the right way with the right security. And so that actually is turning into one of the best practices, again, with the right steps involved in the process. And I think another, really interesting thing that we're seeing is the growing importance of cloud solutions of all types.
Yeah, that's right, and you can see some of them listed here on the next slide. And why don't we unpack that a little bit, Donna, and talk about some of how, thankfully for a lot of customers, you're in the cloud. For those of you who aren't, being able to enable as quickly as possible is still really, really important. Cloud solutions might make it a little bit easier, but lots of interesting challenges here as well, right, Donna?
Yeah, there's challenges on both sides, whether you're using an on-premise contact center solution or what's called a CCaaS, contact center as a service, a cloud-based contact center ACD or dialer. There's pros and cons, right, to both of them, and you can move your employees at home if you have either of those solutions. However, I have seen already, again, seen is a relative thing, right, spoken to a bunch of my clients who have literally been able to get cloud solutions set up within 24, 48 hours. In addition, I've also seen organizations who had, let's say, an on-premise contact center solution, and they had, for disaster recovery purposes, a cloud-based solution that they were able to just, literally turn on. And it's not them turning it on, right? They just reach out to the vendor. And, the core infrastructure is one thing for the routing and queuing, but there's so much more, right? If you're, just Ryan, some numbers. As of June of 2018, there were 16.8% of the contact center seats, based on our research, were in the cloud. Now, I think a year from now, when we look at what the numbers have turned into, it's going to be between 30 to 40% of seats are now in the cloud. Now, again, lots of people have moved things to the cloud, and there will be some pushback on that as organizations move back to their offices once this epidemic goes away, and it will. And we're all going to come out of this stronger than we went in, because it's amazing how people are working together. But having the cloud solutions really make it so much easier. Now, another area, and you're probably seeing a lot of this, where I'm seeing wonderful things happening in short amount of time, is the area of self-service. What are you seeing happen there, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-service is one that we were just talking about last week with some of our experts with our, we have virtual assistant technology, web self-service on Thursday of this week. We're also going to be talking with our government and public sector customers about what they can do in a self-service environment. And in a normal environment, even as it is today, many people prefer to serve themselves. But with the spike that you described earlier in the number of phone calls that are coming in at the moment, being able to have the right knowledge and the right embedded capabilities to respond through self-service is really critical in the crisis right now. How about for you, Donna? What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing organizations continue to turn to their self-service solutions. As you pointed out, the preferred channel for people in good times is actually self-service. Clearly, there's an emotional level that you don't get when you talk to a self-service solution, at least not yet. We will get to that. But the technology hasn't gotten there yet. Actually, that's not true. I was working with a bot, and if you didn't input, actually an intelligent bot, an intelligent virtual agent, it's referred to. We were just testing it, and if you didn't put in the information it wanted after the second try, it actually got snotty with you. It was really, really very funny. So it can do that, but it's not necessarily a best practice today. But, we have the IVRs in the marketplace, which we've had. But now we've got this new generation of intelligent virtual assistants, and this is not a commercial message. We just finished a couple months of research in this marketplace and just looked at about 15 of the solutions, including Verint, which is really very nice. And I would say that in public, and there's no commercial message here. But these IVAs are so much more intelligent. And what's also interesting is that a lot of the IVA providers are coming out with prepackaged capabilities to help organizations with COVID-19. What are you guys doing in that area, Ryan?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing as well, is offering, take for example with speech analytics, or interaction analytics, as you mentioned here, one of the cloud-based solutions. We've set it up so that we will, for all of you on the line that are Verint customers and using speech, we will, at no charge to you, help you set up a whole package of new categories to help you better understand exactly what's happening, not only with COVID-19 policies and calls specifically, but depending on your industry that you're in, it could be related to refunds or insurance policies or any number of different specific categories of things. So that's just one example. It's also true, as you mentioned, with virtual assistants. It's true with desktop and process analytics. True for workforce management. There's a number of different really kind of free services that we're offering at the moment in order to try to help all of you as much as we can right now in the moment to be able to get your people working from home, use mobile applications. It's like a lot of us always say, with any software, there's just so many features you may not be using them all. And so enabling you to use all those in this very challenging environment is very much what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point that you raise. Again, this whole thing is unprecedented, right? Just never seen it. But one of the wonderful things that we have seen from Verint and others is that they are there to help people. And of course, guys, vendors, are there to make a living. But right now, just wonderful offerings. So if you have issues, you're not sure how to deal with them, reach out to Verint, reach out, to folks you work with, and ask them for help. And I have seen so many wonderful partnerships. We are all alone. We're all, in quarantine, so to speak, in one way or another. I know my neighborhood actually has a curfew. But it's amazing how people are working together to help each other. And without a doubt, having these solutions available in the cloud has been a game changer. I mean, if this had happened 10 years ago, it would be very different. And our ability to help our clients, help our employees so we can help our clients and deliver the best experience we can under the circumstances would be so different than it is today.
Yeah, especially when you reflect on, and I know that's where we want to go next, is working from home. The whole challenge of working from home. I mentioned earlier, we heard from U-Haul, I guess it was last week or the week before. It's all blurring together now, isn't it, Donna? But they did just a terrific job of presenting what they had already been doing. They already had the vast majority of their customer care and contact center workforce working from home. So they shared just some general best practices around shift swapping and how to use your mobile app in order to change your schedule on the fly. Lots of things that are really useful in any time, but as many of you are transitioning right now at the moment to work from home, for the first time really, at least at this scale, those are the kinds of things that I think you need to reflect on as you go live, not only with these solutions, but setting up the practices internally to respond to your customers just as effectively as you can. I know, Donna, for you, you're setting up a series of recommendations around working from home now as well at DMG, right?
Yeah, we absolutely are. It's funny, when Ryan and I were first talking about this webinar, as Ryan pointed out, there are some companies who have had employees working from home for a long time. And I'd say, Ryan, it's probably about 5% of contact centers have really effective work-at-home programs where almost everyone, pretty much everyone, is working at home. Is that about the percentage that you think it is today?
In terms of everybody, yeah. I mean, you could tell with U-Haul they were an early leader, sort of an early adopter in this area to go that way, and it was very well attended. Lots of really good questions for them. But we are now, obviously, we're all in that situation, right?
Yeah. And, the scenario really is, and kind of the idea behind this webinar is, well, what do? You don't have a full work-at-home program. A lot of companies have a few people that work at home, a few agents, I should say, who work at home. And, they've started the programs. They've stopped it because of different priorities. There are, a small percentage of folks, who really have literally closed down their contact centers, their real estate, and moved everyone at home. But most companies are kind of like okay, well, we always wanted to do this, but, we're now in this situation, and we just have to get them there. And, they have a few agents. What I don't see a lot of in those companies is at-home supervisors and at-home managers. And that is creating a lot of inquiries about, what do we do? And, I mentioned at the beginning that flexibility is going to be the name of the game, but without a doubt, a lot of the practices, such as, being able to see people and manage them that way, that worked when you were in the office, are not working in today's environment. And, when all of this is said and done, I'm at my core, as Ryan knows, a process engineer. And, when all this is said and done, we're going to have the opportunity to sit back and take a look and figure out what practices worked, what practices didn't work, what practices were only relevant to the emergency situation. But right now, we just have to be flexible and make the best out of what it is we have, which is why it's so important to have some of those tools.
Yeah, when you think about work from home, I was reflecting as you were talking, Donna, about one of our customer advisory board members in the insurance industry. They were talking about, yes, they were seeing call volume up, not like some of the others. One of our credit card customers said it was well up over 100%, the call volume. For this insurance company, it was up about 3% actually, so not a huge spike. But this is an organization that had about 33%, a third or so of its staff working from home before the crisis, and now they're at 100%. And they're effectively responding. I mean, they're getting questions about what can you do to help me with skipping payments? I've been laid off. I've got payment programs questions for you, life insurance questions. All of these different things are things that need to be responded to effectively, and they're doing it. They've gone from 33% work from home to 100%, and they were able to respond to their customers effectively. And they're even able to figure out exactly why people are calling using some of their analytics tools. So that shift you're talking about of having to go there, but maybe in some cases having some portion of your staff already working from home, pretty remarkable what some customers are doing now.
Yeah, it is really impressive, the commitment that companies are making, to their customers. And then I'm going to come back and emphasize again, got to be there for your employees so that you can be there so that they can be there for your customers. So
yeah,
critically important.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Okay, well, what do you say we dive in a little bit in some of the different solution categories, and maybe a good place to start, Donna, might be kind of some do's and don'ts as it relates to key performance indicators in the current environment.
Yeah, it's, as Kelly mentioned at the beginning, Ryan and I have been working together for quite some time, and we've watched things, ebb and flow over the years. And on the stop sign is actually some of the KPIs, key performance indicator metrics, that already were things that we probably needed to move away from in a lot of operating environments. And, it is very important to pay attention to productivity in contact centers. These are people-intensive organizations, and we have to, but the different ways of doing it. So you can either concentrate on the productivity side, or you can concentrate on the quality side. You can concentrate on making sure people are there. And, that's, Ryan has heard me talk about this, Ryan, for decades, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely.
And, along the same lines, we've got some amazing tools. right? So for example, on the workforce management side, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And, for example, the power of mobility and the importance of mobility. We knew it before. We surely know it now. But, when people are doing everything that they can, right, when they're using their kitchen tables, or even there was an article in the New York Times about New Yorkers using their vanities as their desktop because that's the only place they can find a quiet spot. Kind of funny, but understandable in New York apartments. Things like real-time adherence. Should you be putting as much emphasis on that now as before? And the answer is no. The emphasis should be put on flexibility. And if people can give you different hours, go for that. What we should really be paying attention to, excuse me, is the information we need in order to manage our operating environments effectively, right? So we need to know the total number of interactions offered and handled by channels so that we can make sure we know the service levels, and we can communicate those service levels using our messaging systems, using our self-service applications. We may want to go outbound. The insurance company you're talking about only had a small surge, but I've seen many with huge surges, particularly even early on. And these companies needed to let their customers know that they were there for them, but that the wait time was going to be unexpectedly high because of things. We need, as managers, to be able to pay attention to what our displacement is on our IVRs, and to really look at the overall health of our contact centers, so that we can make the tweaks and changes in operations, in what it is our employees are doing, to be able to make sure that everyone's on board, both our customers, as well as our employees. So, I think one of the good things I hope that comes out of this is that there will be a deprioritization of some of the fundamental KPIs like average talk time and average handle time, ATT, AHT, that have been there since the beginning of these markets, and more towards emphasis on net promoter score, customer satisfaction, information we're learning from our analytics-enabled QM applications. I mean, these are the kind of things that we hopefully will be able to institutionalize, once the emergency and the crisis is past, and we can really do a review of what worked and what didn't work for our organizations.
Yeah, you mentioned automated quality there, Donna, and obviously nearly everyone on the call is doing some form of evaluations based on interactions with customers. What's your take on how best to handle that in the moment?
Well, there's always, in contact centers, I'm going to use a really trite one. When the cat's away, the mice will play, right? And there's always the perspective that we need to pay attention to what our employees are doing. Now, from what we've seen, over more than 35 years, the vast majority of our employees are committed in doing the right thing. But it's not just a matter of doing the right thing right now. We've got to use the solutions that we have to get a handle on something you said, which is what it is our employees are talking about. And interaction analytics plays a very essential role in that process. And AQM, Analytics-Enabled QM, is actually a component, an application out of speech analytics. Speech analytics, and I'm going to come back very specifically to what you asked, but speech analytics was very important before this. Now, if anyone had any doubt, it is mission critical. So, if you can see your people, if you can ask a few people, what's going on, it's one thing, and you get a lot of visibility into what's going on. But if you can't see your people, sure, you can call them up and ask them. And as a matter of fact, one of the practices in this kind of situation, communication is key, and having supervisors and managers reach out to employees on a daily basis is key. but to be able to look on an institutional basis about what's going on is so important. So keep in mind with speech analytics, we know what's coming into our contact centers, but what's coming in is issues that are critical to the entire enterprise, not just the contact center. And, again, a proven practice in the market is you want to find what your top 10 or 20 inquiries are. You want to update your knowledge bases and make sure that your employees have the information that they need. Now, I said productivity, we didn't want to pay attention and push productivity, but we care about productivity. And what we want to do as managers is give our employees the information, help them to know how to spin it. And we need to do this in this kind of situation on a daily basis. This isn't you can send out an email and hopefully everyone will read it. No doubt you should be, doing, update sessions, on an ongoing basis, virtually, of course. And, a lot of the information that we're using for those sessions, we call them huddles, team meetings, whatever you want to call them, is actually coming from interaction analytics. And going back to your question about QA, it is so important. But right now, Ryan, our supervisors need to be free to be there for their employees, to be there for the customers. And this is where AQM, really organizations should be doing 100% using speech analytics and text analytics, we call it IA, interaction analytics, to listen to 100%, if you possibly can, of your inquiries, and to find the things that really do need immediate attention. So the world's changed, and this solution's there for it.
Yeah, boy, has it. And when you think about the, daily insights that you can gather, I mean, in talking to our advisory board this week, they've said that they're actually, in some cases, down to hourly. About every 3 hours, they're doing leadership calls and using and uncovering what people are calling about and why, using analytics. So encourage everyone to reflect on it that way. And on the previous slide where we covered key performance indicators, many of you already have our performance management solution embedded into your daily operations, and some of those best practices that Donna shared around changing the view and the scope of what you are measuring and putting those into your performance management scorecards could be really useful right now. Getting more, I hate to call them COVID-related, but pandemic-related and immediate response-related types of performance indicators. You can repurpose those using the exact solution you already have, and then have speech analytics feed that in there in terms of what types of criteria and new measurements that you want to add in. But I'm conscious that a lot of you are what used to be daily or every other day is now almost down to the hour in terms of getting as much updates as you can. And that's why I think your point here, Don, about being as real-time with your analytics and automating as much as you can is really important.
A great example that just came out of this, and it's kind of it's a classic, is a lot of people were calling insurance companies saying, well, hey, we're not using our cars. We can't go anywhere. We really should get a reduction. Now, it's kind of interesting because, right, here's the contact center getting the inquiry, but this is a business issue. This is a business decision that actually has to be made. So it has to go totally upstream and then back to update the knowledge base. And what's really very, very exciting is, more and more companies are using standardized knowledge bases. So it's not a matter of distributing memos. I mean, in a couple of the wars that I managed through, sorry to put it that way, but it's true. I remember the first war, we didn't realize we were one of the biggest call centers, but this goes in the world at the time, and we didn't realize that people were going to call us up and ask what we thought about the war. After the third call, in the old days you sent out a memo, but now people can, look at a knowledge base, have one answer 1 minute, and then when they go back in again, actually have a different answer because we're using interaction analytics on a real-time or almost real-time basis to, allow us to update the information. So phenomenally powerful.
Yeah, gives you much more contextual knowledge, doesn't it, Donna? Contextual in-the-moment knowledge that can help you just, in near real time, as you said, as everybody's changing almost on an hourly, certainly a daily basis. Having that knowledge is critical, and being able to uncover what to say and pulling it together oftentimes is fed directly from analytics, as you're saying.
Yeah, it's also a game changer, Ryan. It's clearly a game changer for our clients, but it's so critically important, right, to our employees who, if they don't have the information, of course what happens is they try to come up with something, and then they ultimately say, please contact us again, right? But when they have the right information, it's just so much more comfortable for everybody.
Yeah.
It really is a game changer.
We keep talking about employee well-being and how important that is. We did a session last week on leading through the pandemic with one of our business consultants, Lori Britt, and she took us through some really powerful examples, I think, of just making sure that your people are doing okay remotely and checking in on their well-being. And productivity doesn't go away, as you said, but it becomes a little bit of a different context. And why don't we go to one last solution category here that's very relevant to the workforce and to employee well-being and engagement, and that's workforce management, and how key it is right now, given that everybody's working from home, and being able to respond to some of these spikes in volume that we've talked about is more challenging than ever.
Yeah, it's funny, the workforce management is the number one productivity tool in contact centers. It has been from the get-go. It's also one of the most important enablement tools to our employees, right? So, you see there a WFM administrator, forgive me, this is my sense of humor, sitting at probably his kitchen table, could be even a living room table, who knows, and happily forecasting and scheduling. Critically important, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, right, the volumes are changing all of the time. So we still need to forecast and schedule. But now, again, with flexibility and keeping our employees as comfortable as they can, we as contact center leaders need to be very, very flexible with our staff. So, if you've got a family of 4 or 5 or 3 in a home, and of course with a dog, right? And because everyone's in one crowded space, people have to take different shifts. You can't take your kid out to any type of place. You can't bring in your caretakers, whatever it happens to be. So lots of people have a set shift, but now's the time where we need to allow mobility to and use mobility to let people tell you what shifts they're going to be able to do. So let's say somebody typically works 9 to 5, but now they can actually work, from 5 until 8, and then, from 8 until 12, just as an example. And with this new generation of much more flexible intraday management solutions and mobility, these kind of capabilities are available. Now, it's also really great for the company because, using a mobile application, that workforce management administrator or multiple people are able to just communicate, hey, these are the hours I need to change. These are the hours I need extra people. These are the hours where it's, low volume, which is not what we're seeing right now. But so, the new generation of, mobile-enabled WFM solutions, which, are more adaptive and allow agents to swap, are proving to be a real benefit for organizations right now.
Yeah. One of the things that we've always talked about over the years, Donna, is strategic planning as well. And obviously right now in a crisis, it's very much in the moment. But one of the things that has come up with many of you on the line that are customers of Verint is there's not a lot of your staff are at home and they're not really taking PTO. They're at home anyway, so they're continuing to work. And there's this potential challenge, like Donna said, we're going to get through this. And we're very resilient as a society, and we'll get through it, and when we do, we'll be stronger than ever. But having said that, that does create a challenge, even planning. You've got the near-term triage in the moment, as we've described, but also many of you have said you're worried about how to plan for later in the year when things return to normal. You're not seeing the same kind of spikes. Many people will then start to take time off since so few are right now. And that's something that I know all of you are starting to begin to think about in terms of planning for it. And, I know, Donna, that's something that DMG has always consulted around, is not only workforce management in terms of real time and what you can do in the moment and with mobile, but also in terms of strategic planning for the future, which takes on a different twist during the pandemic. What can you do now, and then how do you plan for when we return, right?
Yeah, and as you pointed out, something we do pay a lot of attention to. And I think, you're also raising a really good point, which is, a lot of people are asking, are things going to go back to normal? Are people going to go back into the contact centers? Are they going to move their people? And I think there's going to be a new norm. And this is where actually some really exciting innovation in the marketplace is coming in, right? The AI enablement within the WFM solutions, because a lot of the patterns that we had in the past are changing, and they're going to continue to change. So, what is the new norm? How are we going to calculate that new norm? Should we use simulation, right? Should we use algebra? Should we use Erlang, right? And we don't know. Nobody knows because the patterns aren't known, which is why things like machine learning is so powerful for being able to really go through and read and analyze what's going on and bring those recommendations, which can be changing both for short term, by the way, as well as long term for these operating environments. So I think we're gonna see quite a bit of innovation helping contact centers. Right now. I know we're seeing that now, but also in the future.
Yeah, kind of a whole new world will emerge, I think, on the back end of all of this. In the meantime, though, I know a number of you have started. There's so many more we could cover, Don, obviously, that you guys at DMG cover, and Verint offers a whole suite of different solutions. We've touched on many of them here today and dove in a little bit on a few specifically. And so what I would suggest next is we turn it over to the Q&A. And, Kelly, I'm going to hand it back to you. I know you've been tracking some of the Q&A that's come in along the way. We've gotten quite a few questions from a variety of different customers, partners, and folks out there at the market at large. And I would suggest, given time, we jump in there next, Kelly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great stuff in here we can dive into. And thanks, Donna and Ryan, for all of your insights so far. Let's see. I'm just going to dive right in. How should we handle virtual recruiting and virtual training as we're hiring new employees in this time?
Well,
Dawn, I'm going to turn this one over to you, but I will say
okay.
It's one we didn't touch on yet, which is related to learning and virtual training. This came up also with our advisory board. Many of you were asking this very issue of trying to cross-train as many people as possible in the current environment and trying to do as much remote learning as you possibly can. But I'll turn this one over to you, Donna, please.
Well, that's absolutely true, and this one's a really funny one. And again, one of the things I think that's going to help improve the operating environment. So when it comes to virtual recruiting, one of a best practice in recruiting has always been to use the channel that you're hiring the person for as one of the primary recruiting tools. So now, it's brought us to doing that. There are a variety of different recruiting tools that you can use. Lots of people are familiar with them. And then when it comes to e-learning and distance learning, right? So lots of techniques. First of all, there's a lot of open source e-learning applications in case you don't have any. There's a lot of ways to use virtualization and virtual learning. And while it's not necessarily ideal, it has already proven to be highly effective. Ryan?
Yeah, I think that's right. And Kelly, back to you just in terms of some of the other questions we might want to go to here. I don't want to miss any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think this one, Donna, I think is for you, asking you to predict the future a little bit. But do you think large contact centers in a single facility are a thing of the past? Should we be thinking more about a distributed model and leveraging technology?
And of course, one of the least favorite things people like from consultants is when we say it depends. But it absolutely depends. What I do think is going to happen, and the only reason I can answer this so quickly is because I've been asked it many, many times. There's multiple parts to that question. So, what's going to happen, as Ryan has just said, this is going to pass. And we are going to come out stronger. There is going to be a new norm. And the question is what that new norm is. And I think the quickest answer is that new norm will vary by organization. I think that more companies will have more people working at home, and they will they may bring people back in for a short period of time and then allow, set up a program and allow people to go home. I have seen Ryan and I have both seen contact centers, go from, one site to many sites to one site to many sites, to work at home to remote locations. And, just because of how things flow, I think we'll continue to see some of that. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay, fair enough. I like this one. How about how can I keep employee engagement up while my workers are remote?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. You're right. I really like this one too. Number one answer is communication, using a lot of the tools that you have, right? A bunch of organizations limit how they use their, I often refer to as Slack just because that's the one we use here, but their chat capability. Take off the limitations. Supervisors, a practice is supervisors should reach out to their agents at least once a day and possibly more. You should have group conversations going around. Agents should be allowed to interact with whichever supervisors they're able to reach, and you can set up kind of searches like that. You should be using, speech analytics is a great way, by the way, to also know who needs help, right? So it has emotion and sentiment analysis. We can use that both for our employees as well as for our customers. And it's a great way to know who needs that help. You should use team meetings. Again, all virtual huddles. You can use your knowledge base. A lot of QM applications, I should say, have communication tools. And very, very importantly, now is a time to continuously recognize everything that people are doing for you, for your customers. Now's the time, to really make sure people know how you appreciate them. Use newsletters. The list just goes on, but the key is communication. Kelly?
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to that is communities. A lot of you are using the Verint community platform, and some of you are using it to help launch a secure employee and customer community in the midst of this whole shifting work-from-home landscape, and you're looking for, quick deployment and all that other kind of stuff to be able to respond to COVID-19 programs. But what I would suggest is that's also a really great place for employees to communicate with one another, and then to Donna's point, provide recognition also.
Great, thanks. Let's see, choose which one. So this one's a bit different. You've been talking a lot about companies seeing spikes in volume, but can you talk about some of the industries or companies who are seeing big drops in volume as the world shelters in place and what they should be thinking about?
That's I'm at the. I mean, the answer is yes, I can. I'm primarily speaking with and interacting with the companies that are seeing the spikes. We've seen a major drop off, right, in the world of retail and in the world of, anything face to face has just fallen off the face of this earth. I shouldn't put it that way, but it seems that way. But we're seeing significant increase in the face-to-face interactions, even on those, we're seeing an increase in the contact center-related activities. So, a lot of people have retail fever, right? Amazon is hiring, what was that, Ryan, 500,000 people? UPS said they're hiring 150. UPS or another one of these companies said they're hiring 100, and maybe Walmart said 150,000 people. So, mostly the fall off is on face-to-face. And I also just saw an article, I think, in the Journal, Wall Street Journal, saying that, a third of economies in a lot of the cities and states impacted by COVID have dropped off. What are you seeing, Ryan?
Well, the thing that we mentioned earlier related to cross-training just as many people as possible and being able to, perhaps do some of the learning and the compliance and best practices that you normally want them to train on, they might have more time for at the moment if their volumes aren't spiking like many others are. I mentioned one of our customers earlier in the insurance industry where it wasn't going down significantly, it was reasonably flat actually. I think about a 3% spike actually, which is not much compared to some of the others that are seeing massive spikes. But for them, a lot of it has been training, learning, and then efficiencies, being able to understand why people are calling anyway so that they can get the responses to the customers more quickly.
Yeah, and going back to workforce management, one of the things, if you are seeing a drop in your call volume, use your WFM solution to do what Ryan said, to do virtual learning and training. Schedule it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. We have a few minutes left before we have to do some wrap-up stuff, so let me find a couple more. This one's a bit of a different topic. Should I continue with post-interaction surveys?
Ryan, why don't you start that one?
Well, what I would say about surveys at the moment is that in a lot of ways they're more critical than ever before. Now, post-interaction surveys can be a little bit different because if you've had somebody that's been on the call for a long time in a sensitive situation, as Donna described earlier, it's probably not the right time to send a survey. But at the moment, we're actually seeing a lot of you who are customers asking for even more customer feedback and employee feedback, that now is actually a really good time to provide that sort of feedback. And so what we're doing right now with what we call our Experience Cloud offering is in order to help you with that improved visibility for both employee and customer experiences is what we're calling a COVID-19 starter package that's easy to set up and includes all the analytics and alerts and helps you get a sense of a pulse, if you will, on how your staff is doing and how your customers are doing. So just like with interaction analytics, that's really critical right now. I think, Donna, you mentioned earlier, reaching out to your staff, making sure of employee well-being and that we're being as responsive as we can to them, both intellectually and emotionally is really important right now. And I think in that sense, experience management is really important right now.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add in very quickly on that is, again, flexibility. There are some organizations that require surveys, every 3 calls or email. As Ryan said, if somebody's calling in with a horrendous situation, don't send them a survey.
Absolutely. So we probably have time for one more. I'm going to attempt to smash 2 questions together because they're kind of related. So we have a question about how do I find out what new types of interactions are happening that weren't in my existing categories I was listening for. But then a secondary question, which I think is related, is somebody saying we're getting new types of questions, more of certain types and less of other types. How do I adjust the staffing when people were assigned to specific queues? So this. I think the whole topic is really about we're getting different questions. Not only are we getting more questions, we're getting different questions than we ever got before. So how should we handle that?
Okay,
well, maybe
so
I'll
quickly,
jump in with, yeah, go ahead, Donna,
okay.
please, if you're ready. Go ahead.
Well,
no, please.
Just very, very quickly on this. This is speech analytics to the rescue, really simply. They have forensic capability, and they're able to identify even things that you didn't set them up to identify. So use it, update your knowledge. Just quickly update your knowledge bases. In regard to the second part of it, there's a lot of contact centers have a series of generalists, and different people have different skill sets. You can again use speech analytics to update the knowledge base, and while it's ideal to train people, right? This is the quickest way to do it. Get the right information in the knowledge base on an hourly basis, and then when you have time, train them. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Donna. This comes down to visibility and compliance. The visibility part of it is really critical. What's actually happening and how is it changing? And I mentioned earlier that for us at Verint, we're offering all of you as speech analytics customers a free package, really, a free program that's COVID-19 related. So it's just really a software update. It's configured out of the box, 13 pre-built categories, easily imported into your existing speech analytics solution. The whole point of it will be timely, valuable insights to help you with that visibility or compliance. If there's certain things you need to make sure people are still complying with remotely, it'll help you with that as well. So to me, the key here is visibility and getting the right answers to your customers, and that's where, as Donna said, knowledge comes in.
Fantastic. So we only have a couple minutes left, and I do have a few things that I want to make sure I tell you guys about. But first, a big thank you to Ryan and Donna. I think that was incredibly helpful, and hopefully everyone on the webinar got a lot out of it as well. Now, stay tuned for the next webinars coming in the series. So hopefully you guys are signing up for all of the ones that look like they'll be helpful to you. We have 2 webinars on April 9th on the topics you see here. Further beyond that, we have a webinar scheduled on the 16th, so they're really going to keep coming. Make sure you're checking out the homepage for the webinar series, and also just checking your email invites and social media, etc. So we're going to keep having these on different topics that we think will be helpful to our customers to get through this time. Also, want to make sure you're aware of our new virtual event, May 20th through 21st. You will be hearing a lot more about our virtual customer engagement conference that is coming up, so please stay tuned for that. We are very excited to bring you a conference in a new way, and so we think it's going to be a lot of really exciting content. So again, stay tuned for more information on that. And then finally, with regards to more information about everything that you just heard, so there's a resources tab on this webinar that you can access a bunch of content related to topics that Ryan and Donna covered today. You're going to get an email automatically that will have a link to the recording of this webinar if you want to forward that to any coworkers that you think would get value out of it. And then finally, if you have any other questions, I know there were several in the Q&A tab we didn't get to, but if you have other questions or if you have a specific need that you want to ask us for help on how you can better manage your contact center and better help your customers through this crisis, please reach out to us. If you don't know who to get in touch with in terms of your account exec, just email info@verint.com and we will make sure we get you synced up with the right person. But we are here standing by, ready to help you with what you need. So please do get in touch to ask us about your particular situation, and we will do what we can to help you. So with that, again, thank you all for joining, and thank you very much to our speakers. And we hope to chat with you all again on our next webinar.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Donna, and thank you, everyone, for joining.